For Filipino and other products from Asia, as well as fresh fruits and vegetables, poultry, meats, and seafood, come and visit 88 Supermarket with branches at 4801 Victoria Drive and its new location at 2611 East 49th Avenue in Vancouver.
Philippine News Canada is brought to you by Rayford Media Group.
Hello mga kabayan! Narito na ang pinalawak at pinalakas na coverage ng Philippine News Canada, Balitang Vancouver Nationwide. Mga pangunahing balitang nakalap ng aming news team para sa linggong ito. Sa huling araw ng spring break, enjoy the sun! Ako po si Rosette Correa at ito ang Philippine News Canada, Balitang Vancouver. Pinay community volunteer nahanap na patay sa Burnaby. Ang sunog na katawan ni Maria Cecilia Loreto ay nakita noong isang linggo ng mga pulis sa Burnaby nang napansin ang neighborhood ng Green Tree Village Park ang isang malaking sunog na nangyayari sa nasabing park. Si Loreto ay nakatira sa New Westminster at hinihinala ang doon siya pinatay bago dalhin sa Burnaby. Ang pagkakapatay kay Loreto ay deliberate ayon sa Integrated Homicide Investigation Team. Si Carlos Tobias, 21 years old, ay nahuli na gumawa ng krimen kasama ang isang 15-year-old na hindi pinakikilala upang maprotektahan ang kanyang identity dahil ito ay menor de edad. Ang nasawing si Loreto ay naalala ng kanyang mga kaibigan na isang masayahin at mabait na volunteer ng Filipino community. Si Loreto ay 5 taon pa lamang nag-iintay bago niya dadala ang kanyang pamilya sa Canada. Kaya't nakakapaglumo ang kinahinatnan ng kanyang pagpanaw. Conservative Party kinamusta ang Filipino community.
And government has to be responsive to that, not stuck in a narrow model of favoring certain actors over others.
Kinamusta ng Conservative Party of Canada ang Filipino-Canadian community sa 2 town hall meetings kung saan ang Rayford Media lamang ang naimbitahang media outfit. Ang usapin ay naganap sa pamamagitan ni Rosemary Enverga, ang esposa ng dating senador na si Senator Tobias Enverga, at kung saan inibitahan ng ilang mga PhilCan leaders from different provinces. Kasama sa usapin ang paghahanap ng CPC ng isang Filipino-Canadian na makakapag-represent sa Filipino community sa mga darating na eleksyon. Ninanais ng CPC na magkaroon ng representasyon ang mga Phil-Canadians sa Parliament. Nagtanong rin si PNC Balitang Vancouver host and editor ng PNT na si Rosette Correa tungkol sa stand ng CPC, tungkol sa Bill C-7 which is the Medical Assistance in Dying, at ang Bill C-233 na magbaban ng sex-selective abortions na kung saan ang ilang mga kultura na patriarchal ay nagnanais ng mga anak na lalaki kaysa babae.
So next one would be Rosette Correa, Filipino Catholic Ministry. She's involved with different organizations, which is Filipino Catholic Ministry, Filipino Canadian Cultural Heritage Society BC, and Rayford Media Group, and also a former alumni of UP, University of the Philippines.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much. And it's so nice to see you again. We just saw each other, I think, was that Tuesday or Monday with the Edmonton group. But again, thank you so much for always taking time to do these town hall meetings for all of us. I have 2 questions for you. Well, it's kind of a womb to tomb question in a way, because it affects, you're always talking about how the Conservative Party is always will always prioritize family and faith, and this has something to do with the status of families in Canada. The first one is Bill C-233, which is the Sex Selective Abortion Act. We all know that in Canada we don't have actually an abortion law, and that that doctors can abort babies up to the term, up to the birth term. So what is the Conservative Party's take and position on that, and in particular Bill C-233? That's my first question.
From my interactions with the Filipino community and many other newer immigrant communities, it is so beautiful to see the respect for seniors, the value of family, and this really is part of, I think, the founding values of our country, but it's something that some of us have lost an appreciation of. And one of the beautiful things about immigration to this country is how people remind us, in a sense, of our own founding values and traditions. And I think we see this in a powerful way with the kinds of questions that you're asking here tonight. When it comes to the issue of abortion, our party has a free vote approach on that. So we have different members who have different perspectives. You mentioned Kathy Wagenthal's bill on sex selection, abortion. There's a range of different views in our caucus. Some people are going to vote for the bill. Some people, they may feel that they may agree with the objective but not agree with the mechanism, and there's others who have other points of view on it. I'm very glad that in our party, we're the only political party in Canada that makes space for people with a pro-life point of view, and that people who are pro-life and people who identify as pro-choice work together and try to come up with solutions that kind of can reflect those differences, but have those conversations in a loving, respectful way.
Finally, Bill C7, which is the medical assistance in dying, which is now being expanded to those with disabilities. What is the Conservative Party's take on that? And what is the Conservative Party's take on really getting a full-on funding for palliative care, which is what is really necessary so that MAID will not be necessary? Because especially here in BC, we've heard how Fraser Health has pushed medical assistance in dying to senior citizens, and of course senior citizens, because they feel that they're no longer useful to their families, will just choose MAID over life, and simply because they're not offered any palliative care at all. So those are my questions. Any MP can answer those questions. Thank you so much.
When it comes to Bill C7, again, our caucus had a free vote, but in the final analysis, when the government was pushing it to adding euthanasia for those with mental health challenges, and it was 100% of our caucus that voted against the final version in terms of the message to the Senate. So we're respecting that principle of freedom of opinion, but all Conservative MPs were listening to the disability community, listening to people struggling with mental health challenges. It really is deplorable that in the middle of this pandemic, when we know that there's been such an increase in mental health challenges and people dying by suicide, that the government's focus here is on paving the road to death instead of life. And you said it very well. What about thinking about the social context, recognizing that people who lack palliative care, lack dignified support, are being effectively pushed into that option? And why aren't we trying to affirm and protect the option of life instead of just constantly making it, expanding the death option? And part of how we provide more palliative care in this country, there's so many things that we've been pushing on this. One of our colleagues, Marilyn Gladu, had a private members bill that passed on this issue in the last Parliament. But part of this is working better with not-for-profits, with churches, with others, because historically so much of the care for seniors was provided through partnerships, private not-for-profit organizations in partnership with government. But with this push to say, and we see it in Fraser Health, the government saying, you've got to do it our way exactly, or we're going to shut you down. Well, that just leads to less available service, right? So we tell not-for-profits, you can't be in this space unless you do it exactly our way, and then people realize, oh my goodness, we don't have enough of these services available. Well, if you're not engaging in respectful partnerships with not-for-profit organizations, then it's going to be harder for those organizations to offer those kinds of services. So it's not just about, I mean, the values piece of it is important, but the access piece is also important. And if you don't respect people's consciences in these partnerships, then you're not going to have the same engagement of the community. This is something that that Conservatives really understand and want to fix, so we can provide more social services, be more compassionate through partnerships, respectful partnerships with organizations outside of government in a way that is respectful of their values.
Ilan rin sa tinalakay ng grupo ang pagkakaroon ng maayos na pathway para sa mga caregivers sa kanilang permanent residency, ang pag-recognize ng foreign credentials ng mga Filipinos trained sa iba't ibang propesyon, pati na rin ang COVID health measures. Narito ang ilang highlights ng nasabing town hall meeting.
Now, we have the last but not the least, John Reyes, MLA for Waverly, Manitoba, and also the founder and president of Filipino Business Council. John?
Thank you, Tita Rosmir, and thank you to all the MPs for taking your time to answer these questions from our Filipino Canadian community. I wasn't expecting a question because this is your town hall, but it was actually something related to what my Kuya Julia said, is that one thing that I have recognized being an elected official here in the province of Manitoba is that we have challenges when it comes to foreign credential recognition, like recognizing foreign credentials from these other countries. We know that the Filipino community has a lot of nurses. We need more engineers. We need more doctors. How is the Conservative government going to facilitate that? And my comment would be is that we got to work together, obviously. My answer to Julius would be, I think we should take more of a surgical approach. As the military envoy for the province of Manitoba, what I have done is when I've taken part on these provincial territorial meetings, because the challenge with military families is when they move from province to province, so for example, nurses and teachers, is that their qualifications differ when you move from province to province. So I guess my question is, for any of you, is how are we going to work together? How are we going to help immigrants, such as Filipino immigrants, when they come to Canada, so that they go right into their occupation, so that we can have them prepared when they come here? Because those are some of the challenges that military families face when they move from province to province. So it actually relates to when immigrants come here from other countries. So I asked that to any of the MPs, and proud to be a Conservative, by the way.
Okay, so any shadow minister can respond to that?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you so much, and thank you for your service, John. I have been doing meetings with the ministers, the provincial ministers, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, up until recently, trying to get feedback on how we can improve these type of these issues that everyone is having. The better that we have, of course, this is without saying that the better economy we have, the better better ways to support people that are coming in the immigration streams. So that's our number one priority as a party, and to secure the future, secure jobs. It helps secure immigration as well. And so as far as it comes with when it comes to credentials and some of the other issues you're talking about, I would love to have some of your exact feedback as well, and we can touch base offline as well again, just to go over some of those things, and let's work together to form better policies so that we're able to support immigrants better, to give them a better pathway. And those are the kind of solutions that we need to find, is how do we keep people here, like our international students? How about we give them an easier pathway to PR as well, so that they can keep contributing to Canada, and that talent that they hold, let's keep that here in Canada, because it's only going to be the benefit to Canada. So I would just say that we are still working on finding better ways, and I would love to continue to work with you offline to find these solutions and get your feedback as well.
Yeah, my recommendation is going into an election, whenever it's going to be, is make sure you have those points, because that's going to help the party get the support of a large base such as the Filipino Canadian community across Canada. So my suggestions, and I wish you all the best, all of you.
One other just quick comment on my end is, of course, primarily when we talk about credential recognition, that's an immigration lead, but there's also a development dimension to it, in that I think we should be really bullish about trying to establish partnerships between Canadian institutions, academic institutions, and academic institutions in other parts of the world. Because if we can position ourselves to recognize credentials more easily, and if part of doing that is pre-qualification, is working with institutions in developing countries to be able to allow them to give certifications that are equivalent to ours, that has many benefits. Of course, it has benefits for those that are receiving those certifications, but it also has benefits in terms of the seamless transition that can happen when people immigrate.
For Filipino and other products from Asia, as well as fresh fruits and vegetables, poultry, meats, and seafood, come and visit 88 Supermarket with branches at 4801 Victoria Drive and its new location at 2611 East 49th Avenue in Vancouver.
CPC leader Erin O'Toole nag-town hall sa ethnic media.
Before I hand over to the leader of the official opposition, I would like to thank all ethnic media producers, reporters, hosts, and journalists for the work you have been doing for your communities that rely on third language programs and third language news. Despite the difficult situation due to the pandemic and huge losses in advertising revenue, you continue to bring information and news to your viewers, listeners, and readers across Canada, many of you as volunteers in over 100
Kinamusta ni Party
It is
Leader
truly
Erin
admirable.
O'Toole ng
Thank you.
Conservative Party of Canada ang ethnocultural media community sa isang town hall meeting kung saan ang Rayfort Media lamang ang naimbitang media outfit ng Filipino media. Isa sa mga naging katanungan ng mga miyembro ng ethnic media ang kawalan ng funding para sa ethnic media at ang hindi pagpansin ng Liberal government sa mga hinaing nito, lalong-lalo na sa panahon ng pandemya. Marami sa mga ito ang nagsara na dahil sa kawalan ng pondo upang tumakbo at mag-print. Ayon kay O'Toole, nakahanda ang CPC na magbigay ng funding for ethnic media kapantay ng ibinibigay sa mga government media outlets, gaya ng CBC or Canadian Broadcasting System, pati na rin ang paglagak ng pondo para sa advertising ng partido upang mag-boost sa advertising needs ng mga media outlets. Sinabi rin ni O'Toole na napakahalaga at napakalawak ng role ng ethnic media sa paghatid ng balita sa kani-kanilang mga audience kaya't hindi ito kakaligtaan ng CPC. Narito ang pahayag ni O'Toole.
Good evening or good afternoon in some cases in British Columbia, everyone. As leader of the opposition, I have a job to do holding the Liberal government to account. With the rise of more COVID cases occurring every day, the milestones for vaccines move further and further away. Canada is at a crossroads. Which path do Canadians want to take? The path of Mr. Trudeau's reimagined economy, one where Ottawa leaves millions of people behind, or the steady and certain path to securing our future? The Conservative path will deliver us to a Canada where those who've struggled the most through this pandemic can get back to work. The decisions we take in the next couple of years will define Canada for the next generation. As father of two, my greatest worry is failing to leave a better Canada for my kids. And I know that's what your readers think too. And that's what drives me. That's why every day I'm telling Canadians about the vision Conservatives have for a stronger, more prosperous, and more united Canada. And that's what Canada's recovery plan is all about. It's a plan to secure our future. I'm proud of this plan we just announced because Canada's Conservatives will enact a comprehensive jobs plan to recover the million jobs lost during the pandemic within 1 year. And we won't stop there. We will take immediate action in the hardest hit sectors, helping those who've suffered the most, especially women, young people, new Canadians who are small business owners. First, we will prioritize investments, securing our economy and creating new jobs. Second, we will enact the toughest accountability and transparency laws in Canadian history. Third, this last year has deepened the mental health crisis our communities have been struggling with across Canada. We know many of your news organizations have been covering this. we will introduce a Canada Mental Health Action Plan and boost funding partnerships with provinces for mental health care. Fourth, I will ensure our country is never unprepared for a crisis again. Canada's Conservatives will make Canada more resilient, reduce our reliance on some foreign countries that we can't always rely on during a crisis, and take seriously our responsibility to protect the health of Canadians. Finally, a Conservative government will secure Canada's economy by getting the budget back to balance over the next decade. Spending to protect Canadians during the pandemic is the right thing to do, and Conservatives have supported it. But we all know we can't pass unsustainable debt to our children and future generations. Once the recovery starts, the Conservatives will get spending under control, and we will get the economy growing again to secure the revenue needed to pay for the government services Canadians depend on, like healthcare and old age security, both of which Mr. Trudeau is putting at risk with his out of control spending. Canada's future is depending on our recovery plan. We're slowly recovering from COVID-19, and now is also the plan to reopen effectively and safely. We need competent and ethical leadership to do that. I want Canadians to know that a Conservative government will always have their backs. We will be there to help. Conservatives are ready to do whatever it takes to get the economy back on track, help save small businesses, and secure our future. It's Canada's Conservatives that got Canadians out of the last global recession in 2008, 2009, and I know that we will do it again this time. So thank you. I've enjoyed my previous sessions with your organization, and I look forward to taking your questions.
Rami Botros from Oxygen TV, an online television program in Arabic, is next. Rami?
Thank you very much, Honorable Erin O'Toole, for this opportunity. Actually, I have a question about if you were the Prime Minister now, what would you do better than Justin Trudeau in the crisis of delivery of vaccines to Canadians? The other thing, what would you do with the borders and the travel restrictions? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Rami. Last spring, I said that Canada needed the domestic capacity to make PPE, vaccines, everything we needed in the crisis. We needed to rely on ourselves because we saw with masks and PPE, there was a global scramble. There was a shortage, and in a crisis, countries will always provide for their own citizens first. It's understandable. So I was pushing for that last spring. It didn't happen. What would I do now? I would work with our allies to secure better and more consistent supplies. The reason why we don't have a more consistent supply from the United States is largely because we've been out of step with them with respect to trade, particularly with the communist regime in China and their support on steel and aluminum, for example. Mr. Trudeau was also having fights with the pharmaceutical industry right up until Christmas, trying to change the rules without consulting them. That led them not want to license one of their technologies in Canada. I would look to see if we could license or move quickly. But part of leadership is making sure you're not behind. That's what I will do. I will create this self-sufficiency, get us moving, get us working. And then we're already, Rami, coming up with a plan to reopen our economy using the vaccines, particularly for vulnerable seniors. Once that is done, rapid testing and screening, masks, sanitation use, and distancing means that some businesses should have a plan now for reopening. And then we can safely open the border as well, particularly because the Americans have already vaccinated well over 100 million people. Can you imagine? They've already vaccinated completely 3 Canadas. And we aren't even at 15% of the population. So Canadians deserve better. A Conservative government, our recovery plan will give them just that.
Paweł Gepski from Życie, Polish newspaper, is next. Paweł, over to you.
Thank you, Katarina. Good evening, Mr. O'Toole. I will keep my question brief. I was just wondering if you could please summarize the impact of the first few months of Joe Biden's presidency on the relationship between Canada and US. I'm curious about your opinion.
Thank you, Pavel. Well, we're not off to a good start with Mr. Trudeau. Keystone XL was canceled on the first day of the Biden administration. That's now two different administrations that have canceled the pipeline under the relationship with Mr. Trudeau. And of course, Buy American is a very big concern because manufacturers, exporters from coast to coast to coast rely on the US market. It is critical for our economy. And Mr. Trudeau has been very slow to react to this huge threat that all our exporters, from steel fabricators to literally every part of our economy, depends on sales to the US. That's why the Conservatives created a specialized committee to look at Canada-US economic relations. At the border, we have to have a plan for when that reopens. How can we access tendering to get in on infrastructure dollars going in the US? How do we maintain our links to our auto industry, energy, and others? It's a priority for us, Pavel, and I also want to secure a softwood lumber agreement, get back to the relations Canada and the US used to have. Mr. Trudeau has now failed under 3 different US presidents to advance our interests. I will stand up and gain that strong, close relationship again with the US.
Thank you.
At dito na naman nagtatapos ang balita namin para sa linggong ito. Kung kayo may mga komento, mga issue o balitang nais niyong ibahagi sa aming programa, ang PNC ay bukas para sa inyo lahat. Mag-email lamang po sa balitangvancouver@gmail.com o tumawag sa 604-588-6397. Mula dito sa Stanley Park, enjoying the last day of spring break, ako po si Rosette Correa. At ito ang Philippine News Canada, Balitang Vancouver.
For Filipino and other products from Asia, as well as fresh fruits and vegetables, poultry, meats, and seafood, come and visit 88 Supermarket with branches at 4801 Victoria Drive and its new location at 2611 East 49th Avenue in Vancouver.